Hello and welcome back to Tech on Top. Now, 2023 is the year for self-custody. So for all of you that are watching that are crypto curious or just looking to get into the ecosystem, this is the podcast episode for you. Joining me now, I have Pascal, the CEO of Ledger. Great to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Jessica.
Great to have you. Now, we have a lot to dive into today. I think first and foremost for everyone that is listening, 15% of the world's crypto assets are held on a ledger. So for everyone that's listening, and it's something that you've advocated passionately for the last few years, why is self-custody of cryptocurrencies and owning your own crypto, why is it so important?
I think it is important for several reasons. First, it's important because it's been designed for this. The market and people had a tendency to forget that crypto only has been designed for self-custody. Not your keys, not your coins, don't trust, verify. All these mantras, Ledger didn't come up with them. They were actually original mantras that came with Bitcoin. Decentralization, not trusting a central authority with your money. Bitcoin was a reaction to the 2008 crisis and the fail of Lehman Brothers and the potential fail of the collapse of the whole financial system. And as a result, promoted decentralization and making sure that people could own their money. And so therefore, Ledger and what we do in self-custody is just exactly that, and giving the means to people to keep their own money and not having to trust a central authority. So I think self-custody is crypto.
And I watched an interview that you'd done recently, and you said once you trust someone with your money, it's no longer your money. And you've said it perfectly there that actually this was the preemptive reckoning for Bitcoin coming into fruition in the first place. The past 6 months in crypto, I think no one could have really expected the downfall that we saw with the likes of FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, but it does create the perfect storm for self-ownership. What do you think are some of the challenges for people that are watching that aren't yet taking that next move into full ownership of their own crypto?
Well, I think there are several challenges. I mean, first, when there is such a revolution, people need to sort of unlearn what they think they know and, learn something new. It is true that, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, NFTs, Web3, I mean, you call it the way you want, but it's the first time that you can actually own something digital. So, and that's new. I mean, you didn't own anything before. You didn't own an MP3 because you could replicate an MP3 infinitely. You don't own your Google accounts. You don't really own your Apple accounts, etc. And so in Web2, you've been users use products and or become the product for other companies. And so it is a real revolution suddenly that you can own something digital. And so for a lot of people, for everyone, for all of us, we need to understand what that means and understand the new habits that sort of come with it. So typically, if you own something, even if it's in the physical world, then you need to worry about it. You need to think about the security around it. And so this is exactly what it means for crypto, for Web3, for Bitcoin, for NFTs. Once you own it, then it becomes your responsibility. And so you need to think about that and think what it means in terms of security.
And it does seem like people are starting to understand and migrate more into self-ownership of cryptocurrency. So I was listening to one podcast where you'd referenced that actually for Ledger last year, despite the bear market, you guys had flatlined and stayed consistent with your growth on top of 2021, which was an extremely bullish year for the industry as a whole. So based on some of the trends that you guys are seeing from customer clientele, what are you expecting for this year?
Ooh, that's a great question, but the reality is we don't really know because there are many things that are still happening in the world. I think, we in the crypto community, but even sometimes, even the media have been very focused in what happened in crypto. And of course, FTX was the big one. Yeah. And it was an amazing story. And, of course, we have to talk about it. But it's a bit like the tree that hides the forest, because it is not like in 22, the financial world as a whole or economies as a whole haven't been challenged. The stock market has lost 30% of its value, which is huge if you think in terms of percentage, but also absolute value. Trillions of dollars have just been wiped out, much bigger than the money that has been wiped out in crypto at the same time. And so this challenge is not over. We don't know what's going to happen in 23, The war in Ukraine is still happening. There is a lot of instability. Inflation is still here. We are entering probably into a recession. And so these macroeconomics will have an effect on our business. When it comes to crypto itself, I think probably 23 will be similar to 22. Crypto actually did really well in 22. It was not really a bear market. Financial markets were bearish, but usage in crypto was actually fairly bullish. NFTs were on the rise, are still on the rise today. And many applications were born in 22. And so I think for crypto, I see a similar trend, users coming in, more engagement. And we can see that users use more and more their private keys because, the success of Ledger of 22 is not just solely due to the failure of others. It is also the consequence of people taking possession of their private keys and engaging into applications. So I think we're going to see more of that in 23. And if you want my prediction, I think the market will turn bullish again in 24.
Okay, so watch this space for 2024. You said something really interesting there when you gave your kind of macro overview of both the traditional markets and then also the cryptocurrency markets. And for a lot of people that listen to this podcast, they are people that are just getting into crypto. So I think navigating the financial world mixed with this new digital era is something that they still are trying to wrap their head around. So how would you say you can navigate between these two worlds when it comes to, as you've mentioned, maybe the macro outlook for both the financial markets and the crypto markets looking fairly big?
If you need to navigate between those two worlds, well, we're talking about value. So, for sure, you need to pay attention. I think we've been sort of spoiled and or imprisoned into this world where you click yes, yes, yes. You're on your phone, you download the new app, and security is not your problem. It's Apple's problem or Google's problem. And so you click yes, yes, yes on everything that you do. You don't really read terms and conditions, because it's true that if you're going to play Clash of Clans, it's not going to have a big impact on your life. I think with crypto, what's changing is actually if you click yes, yes, yes without reading, then it's your money that we're talking about, and so then it becomes extremely important. And so when it comes to money and value, I think it's critical to the livelihood of people. I mean, if you lose your money tomorrow, what happened? Or if you mismanage your money tomorrow, what happened? And so I think, again, a few things need to happen. One, people need to educate themselves, and do the work themselves. So often I hear, "Oh, but no one told me." It's like, yeah, but people will probably not tell you, and it's not because they don't tell you that you shouldn't do the work of looking out for yourself, I guess. And so a lot of education needs to happen. And of course, players like Ledger or Binance or Coinbase, we're doing a lot in terms of education, because this is also what we owe to our users in a way. So we're going to do our part, but users got to do theirs, and also educate themselves and make sure that they read the content, and make sure that when they press yes or when they press send, they actually they're making an informed decision. And I was going to make a second point, but I think education is the first point, and then I lost my train of thought, so I'm sorry.
No, I have another question lined up for you anyway, so it's totally fine. So last year, we could have called that correction, which was, let's call the FTX scandal, the correction of self-custody. Would you expect that there could be any other corrections over the next 12 months that might come and shake up the industry anymore?
I mean, yes and no. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think generally, in terms of cybersecurity, centralized value propositions are bound to fail. If you're the single point of failure, you can have the world of hackers that's going to be after you, and because it's like a honeypot. And so I think it's a big security issue, and security issues in 23, online cybersecurity issues will be bigger than in 22, and in 24 they'll be bigger than in 23 and in 22, etc. Every new year is going to be the record year in terms of cybercrime. And so I think decentralization is actually a gift to humanity, in the sense of it's a better security. I mean, blockchains work great in terms of security because they are decentralized. So you don't have one single point of failure for Bitcoin. And so FTX was fraud, and so, but it's easier to do fraud if you are in charge of something that is centralized. Yeah. It's very difficult to do fraud on something that is decentralized, or near impossible, actually. So it's better security in every way. And so I think the world will go towards decentralization for the reason, not for philosophical reasons, but for more of a pure security issue. Decentralized databases or decentralized protocols are more resilient and more robust than centralized authorities.
I always think the CEO's role as well is to forecast trends and see where the industry is growing. So you've mentioned security there as being one of the big focus points for this year. Talk us through the security measures that Ledger has to undergo, because that must be an enormous task.
Yeah, well, security is a never-ending game. It's a story that repeats itself. So typically, the Ledger products are secure because we keep on attacking them, and so we keep on trying to figure out if there is a flaw, if there is a way to enter. It's not a job that is done. You can't say, okay, in 21 or in 18 we released the Nano X and voila, it's done and now it's secure forever. It's not the way it works. The Nano X in 5 years will be attacked by new technologies, etc. And so what we do at Ledger, we have our attack lab called the Dungeon, and the Dungeon does exactly what attackers will do. It takes our products, competitors' products, partner products, everyone in the space, and we attack relentlessly and try to find ways to penetrate systems, and in order to patch them, and in order to help the industry patch the systems. Because the mission of Ledger, which is security and ease of use for consumer and enterprise, we do this for consumer and enterprise whether you use Ledger products or not. We make sure that the Ledger products are very robust, but we're also helping the rest of the industry, raising the bar basically of security. So this is something that we do. And the other thing that we do that people don't know is we work a lot on the basic technology, so secure elements, HSMs, operating systems, making sure that we design this for the future as well. There are things that exist in the market today that are good for what the market needs today, but they aren't future-proof. And so they're not good for what the market needs in 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. And so we also working on that.
That must be hard to gauge because the industry moves so quickly as well.
Yeah, but I think, that's what I wanted to say earlier. So don't be greedy. So educate yourself and don't be greedy. I think many mistakes were done in 22 because people are just too greedy. Mm-hmm. I never understood why you would trust someone with your Bitcoin to make 4%. That doesn't make sense to me. You would risk losing 100% for for an extra 4% gain a year. For me, that's just pure greed. Bitcoin is a great store of value, so you just buy and hold it. There's no need to give your Bitcoin to someone else just to make a little cream on top. That's greed. So not to be greedy is very important in this space. And the reason why you enter this space has to be sort of more than just making money.
Yeah. You made a very good point there earlier when you said as well about ticking the boxes. So almost going through the terms and conditions, but even when it comes to crypto, making sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And I think to go back to your bull market comment, I know when I worked with CoinMarketCap and we would make videos during a bull market, actually our viewership goes down because everyone thinks they're a pro because everyone's 10% up week on week. And it's actually when there's a bear market or when the markets are a little slower, people take the time to read the fine print and that protects them in the long run, but people need to have that invest ahead and stay a little bit more savvy during different market terms and conditions.
Yeah, that's very true. So educate yourself, don't be greedy, and remind me your question. Your last question? I
can't remember. We've gone on a complete...
Oh my God.
So if we go and...
This is the after Davos effect. Everybody is so tired.
So talk us through Davos. How was it? Because World Economic Forum, the world leaders go, but also there is the kind of innovation, regulation is a big talking point as well. What were some of the interesting things that came from Davos this year?
Well, first of all, I think I went to the town of Davos. I didn't go to the World Economic Forum, which is, two different things. Yeah. I think for people to understand, the World Economic Forum happens in Davos in a certain time of the year, but then there are many side events that are not related to the World Economic Forum that are happening at Davos at the same time. Many of these events are crypto, and so this is why I was in Davos and to attend those crypto events. For us, it was at the time of making announcements. We had an announcement and a partnership with L'Officiel, which is a very popular fashion magazine in France that has been out there for more than 100 years, and we did a partnership with them to bring their pictures archives, make them NFTs, and secure them for l'officiel. And so that's actually, I think that's very advanced, because if you think about it, these archives, 100 years of the history of fashion, every brand for men and women, every design, these archives existed, but the public didn't have access to them. And so the fact that you can now make these NFT and distribute them online and share them with the world, I think that's very exciting, and it's exactly why crypto exists. So that was one of the main reasons why I was actually in Davos, is to attend this event with l'officiel and announce our partnership.
Right. So still bullish on NFTs?
Oh, very bullish on NFTs, but not being bullish on NFTs, you would say, like, I'm not bullish on websites. It's like NFTs and underlying technology that you leverage to create a lot of use cases, and I think all these use cases make complete sense. Digital goods and ownership of digital goods makes sense. Are people collectioners? Yes. Do people want to own things? Yes. That have value or that are sentimental? Yes. And so NFT is just a medium for this.
And to go back to Davos, so a lot of the topics that came up in crypto in the past 4 to 5 months, all eyes are on crypto right now in the industry. We saw Nouriel Roubini speak out from Davos saying that 99% of crypto is a scam. I'm sure there were some very interesting conversations when it comes to regulatory affairs and the future of crypto. What is your outlook on that? Is there anything that you're expecting from 2023 when it comes to regulatory approaches, or maybe some hurdles it could potentially slow the industry down? Or are you thinking it's time that we have a little bit more oversight?
Well, first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to say that I don't really understand people that are making big claims like this. For me, it makes no sense. Why would you? I would never say personally, yes, I think Bitcoin is 100% sure, everybody should do it, etc. I think you should always keep a reasonable doubt. We have a French philosopher called Blaise Pascal, which was le doute pascalien. Doubt should always be in you, because in the end, you don't know. And so people that are making claims, I heard again, JP Morgan.
Jamie Dixon, was it the 21 million Satoshi comment?
Yeah, making bold claims again around Bitcoin. We'll see. It will be like everyone, we'll be all sitting on the bench and see what happened. Mm-hmm. So I would refrain from making such bold claims myself. When it comes to regulation, I think people sometimes mistake regulation for what it's not. And so it is not like FTX wasn't trying to be regulated, or wasn't, in Washington every day and good friends with the SEC, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think typically FTX is a case of fraud, it's not a case of regulatory issue. And also FTX is a centralized value proposition. So for centralized value proposition, should they have a regulation that resemble what exists for banks and existing financial institutions? For me, I think it's a no-brainer. Usually regulation exists because when you have a black box and you don't know what people are doing into it, then you just try to regulate the outcome. It's you cannot do anything you want, so you need to obey these laws, and the outcome needs to be X, Y, Z, etc. When it comes to regulate pure mathematics, I don't think regulation has any say in, free speech. I think Bitcoin is vastly free speech. It's a piece of code that is online and people willingly participate, but it's an open source code. And so no one is in charge. You don't have a CEO. You don't have anyone making decisions. And so I don't think that there is anything to regulate. And so people are trying to mix the two issues because I think from a political standpoint, there are a lot of people that are anti-individual freedom and see Bitcoin as a means of individual freedom. And so they would prefer not. They would prefer that, there is a big temptation for governments to sort of control all our lives and use technology to do so. And for the greater good, of course, it's never to really take freedom away, but it's always for, a higher purpose. But I think the greater good is a terrible idea most of the time, and freedom, individual freedom, is very important. So I would say that regulation will probably stay away from mathematics, and so everything that is online transparent. Is Jamie Dimon is the CEO of JP Morgan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he needs to do better research to understand what 21 million Bitcoin means and how it is created, etc. Because obviously he didn't do his homework.
He needs to brush himself up on the white paper. He needs to reread it.
Honestly, I mean, see those bold claims and him saying like, how do you know there's 21 million Bitcoin? I'm like, okay, read a book. Why don't you read a book? It's okay. Take
Listen
the
to
time.
the podcast. It's simple.
Yeah, or a podcast, or there are so many great guys that have pitched Bitcoin. Michael Saylor is actually great pitching Bitcoin. If you listen to Michael Saylor, like 45 minutes, it's great. And before him, Wences Cesares from Zappo was an amazing advocate for Bitcoin. And these guys are serious people. Like they understand money, they understand value. Yeah. They're not idiots, and they make it very simple to understand. So you got these guys, you got books, you got everything. So I don't know. Like I don't again understand why people don't educate themselves more.
Maybe this is the year. So now finally, just as a recap for Ledger for the next year, what you guys have in store. I think one thing that you guys really focused on last year was UX and UI improvements and new updates to be more inclusive of NFTs, as you've mentioned. Really exciting year. What are we going to expect from this year? What are some of the favorite things that you might have coming up?
Well, more of the same, actually. We're launching Ledger Stacks. So we've announced this in December, so we have yet to take it to market. And the pre-orders are actually really good and really encouraging. But more of the same because Ledger is an open platform. So now if you're a third-party developer, if you have your app, if you have your service, you can actually code on top of Ledger without Ledger. So this is super exciting. So think about like an app store for your iPhone. And so there are more and more apps that are either available in Ledger Live or compatible with Ledger. So if you have a Web3 website, you can now connect Ledger directly to your website and secure it. And to me, this is exciting because then I don't know who's going to do what. I don't know who's going to code what. I don't know what's going to be the next app. If you go into Ledger Live today, there's an app for everything. I don't know if you remember the Apple commercials, like there's an app for this. So this is exactly what's happening now. Like if you want to, pay your taxes, there's an app for this. There are many apps for like many different things. And so the only thing you can say is to encourage people to go into Ledger Live and to click on Discover and see everything that is available. It's actually quite interesting because then you see where crypto is going and how people engage more and more with the crypto. Again, from games, we just launched Comet as an app, which is a game as an app in Ledger Live, all the way to declaring your taxes, to buy Bitcoin, to swap, to do whatever you want with your crypto.
And that's how the industry grows as well. That's how the industry will expand and kind of cross-partner. So Fluid Finance will have to check it out.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Fluid Finance typically could code the app directly on Ledger Live.
Fantastic, exciting times ahead. Well, Pascal, thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was really valuable and great to catch up. Thank you.
Merci.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, as always, to not miss more content like this.